Hi, Ryan Kohler here, hiring guru with today's hiring tip. Today we're going to talk about how to get creative with hiring to compete in the world of the talent shortage. Make sure you stick around to the end. We've got a really cool download. It's our top 5 ways or top 5 tips to increase your qualified applicant flow, and most of them you can do for $0. All right, so I don't care where you go, you're gonna hear that there is a talent shortage. I swear my 12-year-old comes home from school and he's like, Dad, I hear there's a talent shortage. It's really hard to find qualified applicants. Just last week, I was reading our local news website, and they were talking and going on and on about how hard it is for employers to find qualified candidates for their job right now. Here in Utah, our unemployment rate right now is 2.4%. So clearly, if you believe that talent comes from unemployed people, then there's clearly a problem. Now, if you believe that where your talent comes from is actually your competitors or people already in the workforce, then unemployment rate really doesn't have any bearing. And I know that I have a video that talks specifically about this, about how really employees are disengaged at work, and if you just offer them a better offer, a better product, a better place to work, that you'll drive them away from their competitors. But here's what's funny is that along the same lines we're talking about how there's a talent shortage and low unemployment rate, the people who are looking for jobs, job seekers, not just unemployed people, but anybody looking for a job, 45% of them say it's becoming harder to get a job. This is really, really strange and hard to kind of wrap your head around. Job seekers say it's hard to get a job. Employers say it's hard to find job seekers to hire. There tends or appears to be a mismatch. Now, why is this? Clearly, number one would be that people think that maybe there's a qualification mismatch out in the world, meaning we have a bunch of jobs open, but the job seekers, and we have a bunch of job seekers who are looking, but they're not qualified for these jobs. The HVAC world has got this ton where they're like, there's 100 technician jobs for every 80 trained technicians, and so clearly there's this gap, right? So qualification might be it. When I went through, I actually read this article. It was on KSL.com, our local TV station, but the article talking about unemployment, if I read the comments, most of the people were saying, well, if they'd pay more money, I would take the job. And so pay rate is usually the feedback that job seekers give. When they read an article that employers are saying it's hard to find people, they say, yeah, if you'd pay more, I'd switch, I'd move, I'd apply for this job. But let's actually talk about kind of, what to do and how to solve the actual problem, and some ideas of how to solve it without increasing pay and without increasing the number of people out there, because you can't do that. Here's what I generally find happens is a lot of times we can make some instant impact in increasing the number of qualified candidates by checking and lowering the qualifications. Now, when I say that, you're going to say, well, of course, that makes sense. If you lower the qualifications, there'll be more qualified candidates. But what I really mean specifically is that I believe that the average job is overstating or has inflated the qualifications for that job. Not because they're real qualifications, but because nobody's ever asked or questioned it. Now, when you overinflate your qualifications, you might think, well, that's no big deal. People will apply anyway. Or you might actually say people do apply anyway. And you're right. Wildly unqualified people apply to any job they want. They really don't care. But there's 2 main groups of people that if you overstate your qualifications, you will scare them away. They are already qualified for the job based on real qualifications. And I'll talk about how you get to those. But it's women. Right? Women apply for jobs that they're 100% fit for. This is out of the book Lean In. And men, we apply for any job. Like, I think it's like we need to be about a 60% fit, but I think that's even a little bit like stretching it sometimes. It's just a difference in the genders of what kind of jobs we'll apply for. So if you overstate requirements, you're pushing women out of your applicant pool. And in upcoming episodes, we'll talk about how we've massively expanded the number of moms in the workforce, and yet if you overstate requirements, you're scaring them out of the workforce. Group number 2 is an interesting one. I call it people with integrity. Now, that's a strange one, right? Why would people with integrity not apply for my job? Well, here's how it works. If you overstate the requirements, people with no integrity and people who just are desperate for a job, they'll apply no matter what. They believe that your application system is the lotto. Put in as many entries as you can, it'll increase your chances of winning. You don't want to hire desperate people and people who don't care about following the rules. But people who do care about following the rules, they have integrity. When you overinflate the rules, meaning the qualifications in your job ad, you're telling people with integrity not to apply or they'll be breaking the rules. So what should you do to solve this? Because you might be sitting here saying, I agree with you, Ryan, but our manager, this is the requirements they give us. They believe these are the real requirements. So I'm going to give you a handful of steps. Number one, validate your requirements. Take your job ad, list out the requirements, then go get the resumes of the people currently doing the job that your manager loves and compare them. Any of those requirements, even preferred things where you're like, a bachelor's degree is preferred, any of those things that all of your people who are great at the job don't have, those are not real requirements. You need to remove them. You're just asking yourself, would Sally, who's our top performer, apply for this job today based on these requirements? And if you say that there's a chance she wouldn't have even applied because back then when she started she didn't meet those requirements, you need to remove them. So validate them. Number two, if that doesn't work, change your target market. Like either change it to lower on the career rung. You're going to hire somebody with maybe 2 years of experience instead of 5. You're going to hire a junior rep and make them a senior rep, or target a completely different target market, like target the hotel world or target the auto sales world and bring people into your world. Now there's things that you need to remember if you do number two. Number one was validate the requirements and lower them to what's real. But number two is actually lower them below what's real and go find people who never would have applied. The problem with number two is that now you're going to get a very different looking applicant. And so these last 3 steps have to do with what you do about that. When you lower the standard or lower the bar for what's required, now you're going to get applicants that previously would have been viewed as unqualified for the position. Now, if you don't change everything that happens next, your screener, your interviewers, your manager's just going to boot these people out. And so you need to actually be deliberate. When you lower the bar to a lower level of qualification or experience or education, you need to then talk about it as a team and say, hey guys, so we're going to try targeting a different target market because the qualifications in the target we're trying to go after right now isn't there. Like there aren't enough of them. We're going to target a different target market, which means when we screen applicants, we need to know what we're looking for because it's different than what we used to look for. Number two, when we interview candidates, we're interviewing them for potential, not for previous experience. And so we need to change our interview and what our interviewers are looking for, because looking for potential is different than looking for people who've already done the job that we're hiring them for. And number three, once we then pick somebody who is coming in at a lower rung, we need to create an onboarding and training process to get them up to speed, because these individuals won't know the same stuff that our previous candidates knew. Those 3 steps, if you decide to lower the bar, are extremely vital to making sure this is successful, because the worst thing that could happen is you get a bunch of applicants who are unqualified and your managers say, well, applicant quality is just lower, and screen them out. Second worst thing that can happen, you interview them out. You're saying, well, they sound like they have a lot of potential, but they don't fit our requirements. Well, our requirements have changed. And the worst possible scenario, you hire an awesome person with loads of integrity and tons of drive and potential, and they fail because you didn't change the way you onboarded them. You didn't give them the tools and knowledge that you promised them, and they end up failing and going somewhere else. And from that point on, they leave bad reviews. They say that you promised them something and you didn't deliver. They tell their friends that it's not a great place to work or that they don't give you the tools that you need. It's just a bad all-around thing. So again, just to recap, it's time to get creative. If you want to get creative with hiring because you say that there's a talent shortage and you can't get enough applicants, we had 2 core things to go through. Number one, validate your requirements and make sure they're real by comparing them to real live people who do the job and what they looked like when they got hired. And number 2, lower the bar so you can target different groups than you used to target, but make sure at that point you reset your screening process, you reset your interviewing process, and you reset your onboarding and training process to make sure that this new different type of hire will actually become successful at the job. Now, I said if you stuck around to the end, I'd get you access to a super cool download. It's the 5 tips for increasing the quality of your applicants and the number of applicants you get, and almost all of them don't require anything but creativity and a little bit of elbow grease. So go and click on the download the guide, and it will walk you step by step through how to go about increasing the number of qualified applicants you receive using our 5 secret tips. Thanks for watching our video today. Until next time, good luck hiring.